and they were going to a trade show in Germany, and we wanted to make sure she kept in mind our vacant properties here in Woodbridge and to be looking out for us, which she assured us she would do. We also had the Economic Development Commission business breakfast at the JCC, and Yaron Baich here in town was there with a colleague of his to talk about how small businesses can protect their data and their information. It was incredibly informative. I'm sure businesses pay a great deal of money for the kind of advice Yaron was able to share with them. Betsy Yagla and I visited Savino Vineyards in our continuing effort to visit local business. Jerry Savino is there. His vineyard is a labor of love. He has Tony was with us too. Right. He has over 3,000 vines. Yep. And in the old barn is where they make the wine. It was really fun.
It was very cool.
Yeah. We also had an update meeting with the Department of Transportation regarding the plan for Exit 59 for some upgrades, and the plan is available here in Town Hall. I encourage people to take a look and let us know your comments. DOT's comment period, I think, just ended, but if anyone has comments and gets them to Tony or me, we can still follow up. We also attended another meeting with the Department of Transportation talking about the needed repairs that are coming up for the tunnel at Exit 59, and DOT is very concerned about that. It looks like on their agenda may be blasting a third tube, as they call it, either for temporary use or permanent use while they repair the tunnel. So there's going to be certainly serious traffic concerns going forward around Exit 59, but we're working with DOT to ameliorate them as much as we can. On community events, I attended the Human Services Volunteer Tea. Audrey Grothier received the First Selectman's Youth Award. Barry Vine received the Special Friend of Human Services Award. And Beecher Road School kindergarten class and the Children's House of Montessori received special recognition awards. They do terrific things with those children to make them aware of helping others. Bethwood baseball opening day was a great success. Hundreds of kids were out there. It was a beautiful day, and they were just ready to go. I attended the Yom HaShoah Holocaust Memorial at the JCC, which is always a very, very moving event. And this year, the remarks were by Dr. John Crystal, who lives here in Woodbridge, and he told the story of his father, who was a child when the Nazis took over, and his father's story was so moving and meaningful. So I thank him for that. The same day here at the church, First Church of Christ on the Green, they had a concert by a group called the Afro-Semitic Experience, and they were terrific. It was a very different coming from the Holocaust ceremony. It was nice to go to something so upbeat and cheerful and bringing people together. I attended the Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Association installation dinner, and I want to congratulate all the officers again. They give so much time and energy for all of us, and I think sometimes people in town forget that we have a volunteer fire association, and the officers give even more than the others, so thank you to them. The JCC hosted the Centenarian Luncheon, which I attended. I believe we have about 15 people in Woodbridge over the age of 100.
Really?
Yes, and the two who were at the dinner were as spunky and youthful as you can imagine. So that also was an uplifting event. I attended Mayor Harp's inaugural ball. It was somewhat later than usual, but it was a very, very good event in New Haven. And the person of the month, the most recent one, was William Rosario, and there's nothing we can say to thank William enough for everything he does for us, and everyone in town knows it. On the Going Green side, we have been leaders with our state delegation in trying to get the cap lifted on virtual net metering, which is the kind of metering that we will be using at the Cap landfill for our solar array. And I would like to thank again Senator Crisco, Senator Schlossberg, and Representative Clarities, because they were 100% there for us and really helped get the bill passed. It was passed on the last day of session and will be signed by the governor. So that helps us a great deal. And our town microgrid project was featured at a White House conference about new technologies.
Wow.
And United Illuminating was down there. So
That's great.
yeah, it was really great. So that's that's the update, and I appreciate your allowing me
No
to
problem.
go out of order
If
to
you
do
wouldn't
it.
mind, would you congratulate Frank on behalf of Board of Finance?
I will
Absolutely.
indeed. I will
Wonderful.
We
indeed.
would have
Yes.
been there, but duty
I'll
calls.
tell him, if you finish very quickly, well, slow him down.
Yeah, we'll try to get over there.
Great,
All
thank
right,
you.
take care.
And thank
Thank
you all
you
again
very
so
much.
much for what you've done.
No problem.
Thank
Wishing
you.
you a happy birthday tomorrow.
I
you.
also think we should thank all the departments.
Yes.
I think they
Absolutely.
Definitely.
they produce very responsible budgets, and they make our job a lot easier than it is. So
And of
we have a
course,
great staff.
we
Yeah,
can't
definitely
thank our
thank the bunch.
finance director.
Oh, no, I'm tired of thanking him. Jeez. How many times we got to thank this guy? Jeez.
I think it's a nice partnership because they understand when we need to come back to them,
Yep.
why.
Yep.
And Tony's very effective in terms of helping with that.
Yep.
And they're willing to give back when they feel they can.
Works well. Okay, so we'll return to, we had to move ahead. Ellen's got to go to a swearing-in ceremony for the police chief, so we moved her up so she could read. So we're going to go back now to item 1. Okay? Okay, public comments. I think, does everybody have a copy of Mr. Lober's?
Yes.
Yep.
Do you have one, Paul? It should be, I think it's, yeah. Okay.
Okay, I was hoping Ellen would be here to hear these remarks, but she'll catch them on the rerun. I have a list of proposals that I'd like to present, but first I would like to address an incident that occurred this past Sunday at the Catholic Church. I am the individual who placed the flyers on the windshields urging residents to attend the town meeting. I thought I was on solid First Amendment grounds, but mistakenly assumed church parking was public space. It was not. I should have sought permission, and to any I have offended, I apologize. To the town official who informed me of my error by screaming at me and threatening to have me arrested, I would say that I expect to be treated in a respectful and gentlemanly fashion, especially by someone charged with the public trust. There is no excuse for attempted bullying or abuse of power. Not only it is likely unlawful, but it is certainly bad manners, and it is good manners that allows people of differing opinions to engage in meaningful dialogue and to peacefully coexist. And it is the basis of all civilized societies. Now I'd like to go on to my remarks. The town has an economic situation which is not of your doing. The sale and development of the golf course property would be a straightforward but unpalatable solution that would likely fail if presented in referendum to Woodbridge voters. What on the surface appear to be conflicting interests may have more compatibility than people have imagined. Golfers want the 18-hole course preserved. Open space proponents don't want development. Town services want expanded facilities, and others want the clubhouse preserved and profitable. There is also the desire of some residents for over 55 housing. Below is a proposed solution that I believe could satisfy all stakeholders. It was compiled through conversations with many concerned and creative town residents. I would urge you to consider the suggestions below and to investigate them as to their infeasibility. And here is the proposal for the preservation of Country Club of Woodbridge property and funding scheme. And these are in no particular order, and I do apologize for that. Okay. So the first item is to seek out contract with Billy Casper Golf to continue golf operations, hopefully long-term. Engage reputable local builders, such as Peter Olson and John Livonia, to bid out the repairs and rehabilitation costs for the clubhouse. Seek a food service vendor for clubhouse, restaurant, and grill. Move recreation, senior center, and fitness center to the clubhouse. Leave the old firehouse to the fire department for storage. Abandon a scheme to rehabilitate the old firehouse or build storage building at the new firehouse site. Divert the funds anticipated for aforementioned plans to clubhouse repair. Set up either an independent nonprofit to seek funding for solar panel installation, or simply have a solar company install panels and pay rent to the town. Explore, and this is really the key issue here, and the most contentious probably, explore a planned development district for the excess land on Woodfield Road, which is 14 acres on the Parkway side and 17 acres on the golf course side, for limited development of single-family clustered homes with minimal maintenance requirements, small yards, which would require no zoning change. There are approximately 31 1.5 acre parcels on there, not all of them buildable, which is why the planned development district and cluster homes would be feasible. And that would be approximately 20 homes. Seek a local developer to buy the land and build said homes. Use some funds from the sale of land to fund clubhouse repairs and rehabilitation, and some to pay down the bond on the Country Club of Woodbridge property. Seek out an option to build an ADA-compliant elevator, perhaps ADA-compliant ramps for access instead. Create a conservation easement for golf course to protect it forever from development, and expand the use of the Country Club of Woodbridge Golf Course to allow use by town residents for walking. Now, I realize that there are lots of issues here, but looking at this plan overall, I think it's a good start of a conversation for a way of perhaps solving all of these multitude of problems and allowing all of the interested parties a satisfactory conclusion. Thank you.
Okay, I think we should maybe have a discussion, a brief discussion about the meeting the other night and what we heard. And first, one point which I believe needs to be clarified. I didn't get the feeling that people were aware of this. The reason we do not have a contract with Billy Casper Golf is not because the town is not trying to have one, but Billy Casper Golf has made no proposal. They keep saying, we're going to get to you, we're going to get to you, we're going to get to you. And I believe the reason for that is I think they're not satisfied with the arrangement because they see a lot of potential monies being spent down the road. Am I correct so far, Tony? We haven't.
I can tell you that we're correct on, you're correct that we do not have a proposal.
Right.
I'm not sure of the reasons.
Okay, well, I'm, all right, so I'm speculating.
Right.
As someone who's been involved from day one, the committee we formed, we had a former president of the Woodbridge Country Club, Alan Offland, is that his name?
Yep.
Right. Alan told us, just one item, is that when the sprinkler system / irrigation system was installed at the country club, it was poorly designed, it was poorly installed, and they've been band-aiding it at the country club for 10 years. Basically, what happened at the end of the run for the Woodbridge Country Club is they spent all the money on the golf course, which allowed the clubhouse to fail and the pool to fail. They were, it's a lot of money to run a golf course. Mm-hmm. And so he told us when he was on the committee that the sprinkler system, and I think Andy has something he could add to this, the sprinkler system is an accident waiting to happen, and it's a $2 million accident waiting to happen. So, am I correct, Andy?
That's what it's going to cost, $1.5 million to replace it.
Right.
And then we've spent money on it. We've replaced pumps, even pumps. We've replaced pumps, rebuilt parts, and I believe that's part of what Billy Casper said, that the irrigation system needs some work,
Right.
and it could fail.
Now, I'm not somebody who doesn't. I was a golfer. I'm no longer a golfer probably for my well-being, because I was too intense. But anyway, I did belong to the Oak Lane Country Club, and I was on the finance committee of the Oak Lane Country Club. I then joined the Racebrook Country Club, and I was on the finance committee of the Racebrook Country Club. It is not an easy. It's not an easy undertaking to make money in the golf course business. As a matter of fact, it's virtually impossible. You're a disease on your greens away from having a major expenditure. New Haven Country Club, I think 3 years ago, had the greens, the Poana got diseased, $2 million to redo their greens. Golf courses they're not money makers, and they can't be money makers. And Woodbridge is in need of a lot of work. So I'm just bringing these things up because I do have some expertise in this area. As Ellen said, if money were no object, hey, it's a fabulous facility. It's a fabulous property, but between these things and that clubhouse, despite what we've heard, maybe I'm missing it, but I don't see how that clubhouse could be refurbished. It needs to be leveled. It's a mess. Windows, again, and like anything else, once you start rehabbing, then The carrying beam here is all rotted. We have to jack it up and replace it. Paul's in real estate. I'm sure you'll understand that. It's just, there's just so many things wrong. The elevator, I mean, you basically can walk in and go up. If somebody in a wheelchair, and it's got to be handicapped access, I don't know, what would it cost to make that elevator handicap accessible? It's got to be a
Well, I
fortune.
don't know, it's not just that, man, it's what, you know, if you had 50 senior citizens upstairs and there was a problem, how do you get them out of there?
Yeah.
Okay? Now you gotta, does anybody bother count the stairs going up to the front door?
Oof.
Or count the stairs going down to the lower level? I mean, that building is not exactly conducive, okay? You know, and again, the question is, we talk about, it's a 43,000 square foot building. Who's done a needs assessment on it? How many people, how many seniors attend some of these? I could tell you, in a month, 8, 10, 15 attend some of these things that I go on these monthly. It's not like you have hundreds of seniors attending these things. So when they talk about use, you know, it's...
Andy, we had that report done. Was it Silver Petroselli who did it?
They did 2. We have 2 reports that were done.
And this was the golf course, or was the
I know,
PGA? The
PGA did one
the
on the
golf
course, and then they did one on the building. Now, again, and those are old, and nothing has really changed, and with mechanicals, anything over that period of time. So wherever that stopping point was, this place has degraded beyond that. Okay, so
When we were on the committee, anybody who bid on that did not want to touch that clubhouse. It
No
was, will we bid as long as there is
Well, you're
nothing
right.
that includes that golf course. And Billy Casper said many times, if they were going to put the golf course, they would never put a structure that size. Go to Oxford Greens. They would just, I think it'd be much cheaper to raise that building, even if you wanted to do
Well,
something,
I-
and put a small facility.
there are
that
3 of
could
us
be-
who were on that committee. I mean, we were on the committee, Karen and I were on the committee, and Adolph was on the committee, so, you know, so we did. And all the meetings we had with them, they said they wouldn't touch it. They really didn't want to be involved in it. I mean, we talk about the economic opportunity. Well, the economic, as far as I can see, the economic opportunity, that was when the country club was members were able to buy from the bank for $3 million. That was a great economic opportunity. I don't, there's, now to make an economic opportunity out of it for the town, I don't see that happening. I don't see it, and I don't see the town being in the golf business. And how many times have we asked Billy Casper, will you take the course over and run it and pay us? Lease it from us. Well, they said, no, they don't want to do that. They're not going to lease it from us. They don't want to be responsible. So, I don't know. I mean,
So, I'm
this
sure-
is an ongoing, this will be, I'm sure it'll be an ongoing conversation until we go to referendum, and finally, that all the taxpayers of this town, not just those small group of people that are really interested, have an opportunity to cast their vote as to what the hell they want to do with it.
I mean, again, when I was on both country clubs are different. You run the year, if it's a bad year weather-wise, now last year was probably a perfect weather year. And they did make some money.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but they made some. But it was a perfect year. But in a country club setting, you run the year, you add it all up. We're short, Andy knows, he belongs,
Yes,
600,000,
I-
and you get an assessment in the bill, in the mail at Christmas time. And you got to pay this assessment to balance the budget. Well, I guess that's what we would have to do through taxes.
Right.
Everybody would have to pay a chunk of money. I mean, I've said right along, look, I'm not saying I want development. All I'm saying is I'm willing to pay my share of the $350,000 a year. We had to buy the property. I'm willing to pay my share of the note and the interest to keep it away from anybody. And other than that, I really don't have, whatever the town's piece, it's going to be a townwide decision. Do we just make it open space? If we could find somebody to buy it for a price, and I heard at the Board of Selectmen meeting, it was Steve Miller.
Steve Miller, yeah.
He said we could get
$2
$2 million for it, but then we'd have to clean up the contamination, and then $2 million. Are you kidding me?
For
So-
155 acres?
Yeah, right. Well, without any ability to develop it, that's
Yeah.
not gonna, I don't know if you get that. I think we've offered it to Billy Casper, and they said no, they don't want it. Billy Casper has no interest in buying it.
I think we made a commitment to the taxpayers of the town that there are proposals that we are going to vet.
Right.
We vetted some, I was on that committee also, and presented them, and they'll be presented. I think, David's got some ideas here. I mean, all this should be considered, okay? And then we have to come up with something and get back to the taxpayers of this town and say, hey, look, what is it you really want to do? Make a proposal to them and have them come forward and say, look, what is it you really want to do?
But I think that knowing that there are so many different interest groups, we have to try to come up with a proposal that has something
Well, I think
in
that-
there for
yeah,
as
everybody.
many of the people.
Well, we've been trying that.
as
We've been trying to do that for
possible.
3 years, 4 years.
I understand. But I think,
But I think we're committed
unless
to
we
do it.
do that, nothing is going to really happen.
I
And
think
we're
we're
going to
committed to
still
do
be
it.
facing the same situation.
Ellen is committed to do it.
Mhm.
So I think it's, we've gotten through the budget, we've gotten through this, Ellen's committed to do it, so I believe that's the next major item on our agenda,
Yeah, I
or
think
her
we gotta-
agenda.
We gotta make a
And
move.
I
We
think
gotta
that-
decide.
I agree.
I don't know. I mean, there's, like you said, there's so many different ideas. I don't know how you present that to them.
I think, I think we should, I'm prepared to let her do her thing and the Board of Selectmen and let them propose something to us. I think they have some plans and options I know they're reviewing, so let's see what happens.
I just thought we'd bring it up, because obviously it was the main topic. We're supposed to be talking about the budget, and we talk about the country club primarily, so it was just something I thought we should at least discuss and get out there. But again, I do want to make it clear that the idea that we didn't put this in the budget
Right.
is because we're basically saying we're not running the country club beyond. That's not true at all. I asked about it, and then Billy Casper has not made a proposal.
Right. But realistically, if you're Billy Casper and you know that other things are being considered,
Yeah.
why would you go ahead and do that
Yeah.
until you know what the town wants to go ahead and do?
Yeah.
So they're waiting.
So I'm sure we'll be hearing. You're in touch with them, right, Tom?
Right?
Yep.
But I think one other point, Matt, is that it's not just a matter of keeping the golf course and keeping it the way it is. We can't do that and just pay down the debt. Okay, there are many, many other sources of funds that are going to be needed to be able to maintain it. And that is the problem.
Yeah, Deke got up there and the numbers got really scary really fast.
Yes.
Yeah, it was like something like $7 million for 10 years. It's a big chunk of change.
Right, right.
Yeah, but Deke doesn't want to admit that the sprinkler system could go tomorrow. That's been the scary thing from day one.
Whether it's tomorrow,
Yeah.
or it's 2 years, or it's 4 years, okay, we're gonna be responsible
Oh,
for
yeah.
it.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the whole point.
Oh, yeah.
Those are all the costs in addition
Absolutely.
to
No matter
paying
what happens,
back
we're
the
responsible.
money we borrowed to buy it. And that's the problem.
Yeah. And like I said, I've been in several times. I mean, New Haven Country Club, that's one example. Racebrook, we had problems with greens where we had to put fans up because the air wasn't circulating. That was, $50,000, $60,000 expenditure. I mean, there's always something on a golf course where the grass isn't doing what it's supposed to do, and there's always expensive solutions to it. So, but
And we're lucky we
They
had
are luxury
a
items.
firm. I think one of the best things we did was have a nationally recognized
Oh, yeah.
firm. If they can't do it, no one could.
Right.
And they've been dealing with those,
Yep.
the aeration and between working with the trees and whatever. So, I mean, I think that this town made a commitment to do all it could by bringing in, we went out, we had some, between Kemper and Billy Casper and then some local people, but we went with a world-class firm. If these people can't make it work, then no one could.
Yeah.
And I think the town was well served. Anyone who wanted to see if we could do it, we put the best foot forward and went with a world-class company to try. And they've been doing a great job on the greens with all the things that you've been saying. We've had the benefit of really experts in the field. They brought all those resources. And, what are we going to do? Our town crew is going to run this as a golf course? Like you said, that's not the business we're in.
And somehow, from the time we purchased it, and where we're at now, we have 10 million into it.
Yep, about 10 million.
So, I mean, it's not like no money has been put into it. But I'll tell you what, even if the money put into it does very little. It needs a lot more to make it really happen.
But I can tell you, at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, Janet Barilari, who's a former member of the Board of Finance, was at the meeting, and she was on the Board of Finance at the time we bought it, and she wanted no part of buying it.
Right. I remember that.
I beseeched her, Janet, We've got to buy it. We've got to protect this from developers. I said, we're going to buy it. We're going to have to run it for a short period of time. I said, we're going to have to. We're going to have to get somebody in here short. But I said, we should not, and this is for public record. I said it again and again to convince her to vote for it. We cannot be in the golf course business. The town of Woodbridge cannot be in the golf course business. And again, I'm speaking from experience. I'm not saying it as it's just not, it's not a business where you can just automatically assume you're going to make money. More often than not, you're going to lose money. The year Ellen was elected, we were projecting a profit in the country club, which I put in a campaign ad, and it was a terrible year, and we lost our shirts because the weather was horrendous that year. The year Ellen won the first time, and of course I got criticized for it. But I said, who knew the weather? That Billy Casper was projecting a profit that year, and we ended up losing a fortune because of the weather. So it's just not. We had a good year last year. If we have another good year, that's rare. So well, let's hope we do. Okay. But there'll be more coming on this, I'm sure. Okay. Next is administrative officers report. Tony.
You usually don't get that music.
Thank you, Matt. The report for through April of 2016 has a $385,000 budgetary surplus at the end of the year. Since this report was developed, Dr. Stella announced that they'll have additional funds in their operating budget this year. So the surplus goes to about $425,000. So you'll see that that's above our $400,000 contribution that we put in the budget.
Great.
And because we have conservative budget estimates and we operate conservatively in that respect, so oftentimes we make up that money. And that just proves it. This year is another example. Some highlights includes the intergovernmental revenue. It's about even, a little slight deficit, considering all the cuts the state made this year. We had that FEMA award, which helped out a lot. Department revenues, $40,000 surplus, largely due to conveyance taxes and building permits. So we're doing well in those two areas. There's a slight deficit in the pool and SRO funding, but we're still doing well with department revenues. And private duty revenues are $85,000 surplus. A lot of work, as you can tell, has been going on around town in various streets. Expenses, $35,000 surplus in insurance. We did very well bidding insurance this year. The center, $12,000 surplus in utilities. We've been doing some upgrades to lights and to other things, and so we've been getting some savings there. With LED lights throughout the town, the price has come down a lot in LED lights, so we're able to switch out a lot of our lights, but our staff. The police department, they had vacant positions, probably around $40,000 surplus. Parks department is a $10,000 surplus, again a vacant position for part of the year. Pool and gym at the school is a $13,000 savings because the pool now uses the heat from the boilers at the school. So there's some efficiencies built in there, and we weren't sure of the timing when we did the budget, which is why we had it in the budget. The debt service, $12,000 surplus. Due to a savings and a refunding we did in June of last year. Waste management is about $50,000. We had low surplus. We have low tip fees. The tip fees were lower than we anticipated, and we've our tonnage is down a little on our bulky waste. Benefits is a $30,000 surplus, largely due to the vacant positions I indicated from earlier. Oftentimes when you have a vacant position, you also have savings in healthcare and other benefits. Finally, the Board of Ed, see it's at 194. That's deficit is reduced based on Dr. Stahl's letter. So those are some of our highlights.
So Tony, is it possible as we get closer to the year end that this surplus could grow even a little bit more?
It is, because I give you them. I do the major ones.
Right.
So I don't include $1,000 in the assessor, $2,000 in tax, $1,500 here, $2,000 there.
So
I do stuff over $5,000, over $10,000. I try to pick big.
But at the end of the year, everything comes to
At the end of the year, everything comes in. Right.
So, but in any event,
Could be
I just want to
450.
talk about this. So if we put this 25,000 back into, we probably have a fund balance of more than 10%.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, because I'd like to just say this one last time, this year. We heard during the election cycle last year, and we heard at the budget hearing, there's one individual who feels that we're spending, by appropriating and I don't even know if that's the right word, but by asking for the permission of the town, if necessary, to use $400,000 of fund balance when we end the year, that we're spending money we don't have. That we've heard that again and again. So again, let me repeat. We have conservative budgets, we have Tony overseeing all these budgets, and as of this point, we have a $425,000 surplus, which means we're not gonna have to take anything out of the fund balance
Right.
to balance the
You're gonna add
budget.
to it,
We're gonna
actually.
add to the fund balance,
Right.
which is gonna get us over $25,000. So that is a totally inaccurate statement that that we're spending money we don't have. All we do at the town meeting, as we did the other night, when that budget was approved, we received permission that when we go to close out our budget next June 30th, 2017, if we are short, we can use $400,000 of fund balance to balance the budget.
Right.
In my 30 years on this board, I can't speak for all of them, but for the vast majority of them, we've never had to do this. The only time I can remember we used the $400,000 was once for open space
Open
purchases.
space purchase, yep.
And it was voted on, the town voted on it, so we did in fact take $400,000 out of fund balance to buy open space. Another time was to fund the loss of the country club.
Correct. It was a revenue
And again,
shortfall.
that was also voted on.
Right.
And another time was when the interest rates started to tumble and we were short on our revenue projections.
Yep.
We used it for that.
Correct.
But other than that, for the past 3 or 4 years, we have not had to use the $400,000. It isn't like we take the day after the budget's approved, on July 1st, Tony writes a check out of fund balance and deposits it into the operating account.
Right.
It's just there in case we have to use it. So I
Correct.
just want to make that clear one
correct.
last time. I hope everybody understands it. We normally, for the most part, do not use the $400,000, and in fact, as I said, we've added to the fund balance this year, and we've increased our fund balance to over 10%.
It's generally, because we keep tight control over expenditures.
Absolutely.
So you keep tight control over contingency. Departments are very mindful of their expenditures. So unless there's an extraordinary expenditure that everyone agrees should come out of fund balance, or some real major issue that comes up, the other two issues were revenue shortfalls
Right.
that were unforeseen. But other than that, that's pretty much it.
And again,
And I think the other thing is that that's why we encourage for most of the year, all of the shifts in the funding are interdepartmental.
Right.
Okay, it's not taking money from another, pot.
Right.
Okay, it's find it within your own budget. What else are you going to shift around in terms of your priorities?
That was also mentioned that had some effect on our bond rating.
Yes.
Okay, and which is nonsense. The thing that was mentioned in the bond rating analysis was their concern was the Country Club of Woodbridge.
Yes.
Yep.
Certainly not a contingency fund.
Right.
It was the country clubs of Woodbridge that rose to the top of the list.
That's it.
That's their concern, not our contingency fund and how we manage it. So I think that should go on the record.
Rightfully so.
Another thing I failed to mention when we were talking about the country club is, let us not forget the pool. I think we all know how expensive pools are, and we know that's a deteriorating piece of equipment. I mean, they were talking about resurfacing the whole
Correct.
inside. That was
Resurfacing.
like 80 or 90,000.
Right.
Again, there's multiple pumps. I mean, it's another. As we know with the Beecher pool, we're constantly spending money at the Beecher pool. Although we've got that pretty much under control. So, aside from the golf course, we also have and the infrastructure. We've also got that swimming
But Matthew,
pool.
that was $2 million
Yeah.
for the Beecher pool,
Yeah. Right.
which was funded with that became part of the beach. Now, I was on the building committee.
Right.
That became a part of our responsibility. It was added onto our scope of work.
And
That was $2 million scope of work.
And as Ellen said, if money were no object, she said it the other night, if money were no object, hey, we wouldn't be God, I think it's fantastic we have all these people using the pool. And although I was a little disappointed that only 54 Woodbridge residents are members of the golf course.
Depends on how we define all.
54, yeah. But I mean, really, it's not like hundreds and hundreds of Woodbridge residents. Let's be honest, we're funding a golf course for out-of-towners. Basically, I mean, we're keeping that thing. I mean, they got how many rounds they play there? 100. I don't know. A lot. And it's not Woodbridge people that are doing it.
I don't know,
So,
they played close to 30,000 rounds last year. I don't know. On a course designed to do 13.
yeah. So it's again. And look, there are so many ideas about that country club. I don't know how we're ever going to come to
Consensus.
I don't know how we're going to do it.
Tony's on top of it.
Okay, Woodbridge Board of Education monthly report. I don't think there's anything other than we know what's going on there. We heard it. But they're, again, Woodbridge, the Board of Ed is doing a great job of working with us.
Absolutely.
They've gotten that, there were 400,000, I think, on special ed over,
Yes.
and they've gotten it down, and he gave us, and again, he cut his budget for 17
Yep.
by 60,000. He
Yep.
sees savings in utilities. We all got that letter, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Dr.
That's
Stella
That's
is,
basically the update.
Dr. Stella is working with us and helping us as much as he can. Anything else, Tony?
I do have another. Just want to go over with you briefly. It's this document from CCM. It's
Okay.
called Impact of the State Budget on Towns and Cities. And
Oh, good, you're gonna explain this?
well, there's a few things I just want to bring to your attention, and you can read through the whole thing at some point if you want, but there's a few things I want to bring to your attention. One is on page, it gives you a nice snapshot of sort of the municipal funding and a summary, the types of things that are funded, types of bond funding they do, in terms of borrowing for projects. It gives a good summary of the motor vehicle mill rate cap. So on page 7, you could read through that. It's at 37 is the mill rate cap, and then it's proposed next year to go down to 32.
Yeah, right.
So, so that's the one thing I wanted to explain to you that
They
about the
actually
mill
pay
rate cap.
people to dream this stuff up.
Right. So then, if you flip the page, there's a revenue sharing. So the whole concept behind the revenue sharing is our funds are shifting to a revenue sharing arrangement where we share in revenues, which are sales tax revenues, a percentage there. It says 0.5%. And so funding from municipalities will vary based on where the sales tax revenues are. So it's like, so our funding it's supposed to having set funding in the budget. Now, if revenues fall and rise, ours will also. So it sort of helps the state out in that way. So I wanted to just bring that to your attention, and shifting from some more traditional funding, and it sort of comes up with how the formula is. And the last thing, and most importantly, is on page 10. Beginning in FY18, OPM will place a cap on municipal spending. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of this,
They're gonna tell us how to spend.
if you can believe it.
After they spend like drunken soldiers, right?
So they're putting a 2.5% cap on ours.
Oh, my God.
There are several exemptions. You'll see the listed exemptions there. The a couple of issues that have come up.
So they're telling us we can only increase our budget by 2.5%.
Expenditures,
Oh, expenditures. Oh, but there's some,
except for these issues.
Except for the big issues, like special education, debt service.
But what's not in here is if your population rises in your school.
yeah, right.
It doesn't say that in here.
Doesn't, of course not.
And then the other thing is what it causes is a sort of a perverse incentive to borrow, because if so sort of how the state got into trouble, because there's like a soft cap up at the state. If debt service is not included, it could sort of give people an
Yeah,
incentive to
sure,
borrow for
yeah.
things that you probably shouldn't borrow for.
Of course.
Whose idea was this?
I don't know.
I mean,
I just thought I'd mention
There
it.
might be some tanker.
So the penalty is for exceeding the cap is 50 cents on the dollar for every dollar you're over.
really, that would go to the state?
And they reduce the revenue sharing.
Well, they're gonna reduce revenue sharing,
Yeah,
and that's what they wanna do.
yeah.
That's what it's all about.
So, with all the, it's sort of ironic, it's not exactly the model for how to run finances.
Again, it's,
Okay, so I'll read this.
So give it a read,
I
and
will
it's,
read this,
you
yeah.
know,
You're gonna keep us from getting in trouble.
yeah, that's the idea.
It'll be interesting, like you said, these towns where they have a big influx of
I
kids.
didn't see that in there in
Or
the list.
how about
Well,
you
look at
can,
what just happened to us.
yeah, right,
Okay, you know?
Right, Amity is a good example. It doesn't say regional appropriations either. What happens in a situation where Amity goes up? Good question.
All right, we have a number of funding requests, so
taxpayers.
let's get to these. So we're gonna have some discussion, I'm sure.
Could I just ask
Yeah.
a question?
Yeah,
This doesn't apply to regional school districts, does it?
it's a good question. I don't,
So they could
so.
jump their expenses 4% and say to the
that's
towns,
a good question.
Hey,
That
us.
came up in one of our meetings, and I don't think it does apply to them, yeah.
Right.
Wow.
But yet it's
Thanks,
part
Tom.
of our, but yeah, it's part of our budget and what we
yeah,
have to
it's a
pay.
huge part of our.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, our first funding request is 1516-13 in the amount of $5,370. And it's from our contingency fund to DATAT processing, DATAT, Fire Commission, DATAT. And I don't know, Tony, I'm going to move acceptance of request for funding 1516-13 in the amount of $53.70. Andy, you seconded it? Why don't you tell us about this, Tony?
They've had an increased number of problems over with their IT setup. And they do have a complicated IT setup based on their sort of newer facility, and so I can account for the increase in expenditures that's necessary. You know, whether or not they'll actually have it in their budget, I mean, that's just a plan of by the fire chief at the moment. You know, till next month, you know, I'm not 100% sure, but I can account for the need.
I mean, he talks about the aging gigabyte switches. This is a new building. How old are these?
They're original, so they're 10 years old.
The building was 10 years ago?
It's 8 years.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's 2009
Can you believe it?
maybe. 2000.
But I
That's
think
when we
this-
borrowed the money.
this-
So they came in. They were in 07, 08, around there.
This points out again the need for us to have
Yeah.
an IT technology
Agreed.
plan
Yeah.
for the town.
Which we're something we're working on,
Okay.
and we're looking to develop a plan and a sort of a committee to evaluate the town as a whole,
Yes.
so
would
that
be
we all
great.
make
Yes.
consistent. You know, Paul's involved in our meetings,
Good.
and
Okay.
so we make
Our first one is Friday.
Friday. Yeah, first one's
Okay,
Friday.
terrific.
So we can make decisions as a whole, both operationally and purchase wise.
Okay. Terrific.
All right. Any questions or comments?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, Dennis, and this is from the Fire Commission for contingency for a UPS battery backup. Tony, you're going to explain it to us. I'll move acceptance of request for funding 1516-15 in the amount of $10,994.
So this is for the battery backup at 125 Raleigh Road radio site, and the UPS, which is also, I believe, original to when we put that in, has failed, and so if the power goes out, the site goes down. And typically, there's no generator there, so what usually happens is they try to get a generator there, but sometimes, you know, it takes a while, or by the time they get it there, the UPS comes in handy to be able to keep the power going until they can restore power.
So is it out as we speak? The battery is shot as we speak? Or did
It's shut. No, but there was an emergency request.
So you did it
granted.
as
Yeah,
an emergency
yeah.
request?
I mean, that's not only for the fire department.
No,
It's
it's
for
everybody.
police
No,
too, and
it's
EMS
On the
and
other
everybody.
hand,
Yeah.
What does it cost to get do they have natural gas down there?
Yes, they do.
I mean, what-
We may be changing that location.
I mean, what's a small,
So, And
you
then
know, you need a small natural gas generator, backup generator there. It's
good.
not that expensive.
Yeah,
And they lose power, boom, the generator kicks in automatically.
yeah, definitely a good idea.
I mean, we're talking about, how much we're paying here? $10,000.
Yeah.
I mean, you could put a whole new system in there for less than that. I mean, I don't know how much radio equipment they have there once drawing, but wow. I mean,
So what
Something
what
we
I don't understand is that this was an emergency request. So has
Right.
this already been purchased?
It's been ordered, and so right now there's, let's see, 4 to 5 weeks. If I'm gonna guess, it's probably not in yet. So right now, if the power goes out, the site goes down, and then they have to
Get a generator.
get a generator and hook it up.
they can't leave that. They need that.
No, we're going to have to do
That's-
this.
you know,
Well, it's already been done.
They're running
It's been
blind.
ordered, it just hasn't come in yet.
Right.
The emergency provisions of our traffic. All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Next is a line item transfer from various building maintenance accounts to paving improvements for 17.5 for the Landon Street Calming Project. I'll move acceptance of line item transfer 1516-16 in the amount of $17,500.
Second?
And this is what, they're gonna put like speed bumps? Is that what we're
Correct,
talking
that's
about here?
basically it, yeah.
Aren't they already there?
Yeah, I thought there was, but there's not.
No, on Landon.
Not on Landon Street? So they call it a calming project?
That's what it's
Yeah.
called.
Calming.
It's called
Yeah.
traffic calming.
Maybe we can give them some pills,
Who are you giving them to?
calm them all down? I mean, come on.
So maybe now Lucy Street will get hammered away at that. That's not gonna, I don't think it's gonna change anything, it's just gonna slow people down, right?
Right.
How many calmers are we putting in here? Do we know?
There's two humps and a speed table.
What's a speed table?
It's more of a platform.
All right.
There's a
The speed
Gonna
bumps
come
are
out.
on either side, and then the platform's in the middle.
middle, yeah. There's a map here on
There's
the,
one at Edward Street like that downtown.
Okay.
yeah.
All
It's
right.
actually pretty effective.
Did I move acceptance already? No.
Yes.
I did? Okay, do we get a second?
And I seconded it.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Or come.
Okay, next is a transfer, a line item transfer to Human Services, additional costs of bulk mail and newsletter preparation for additional newsletters for baby boomers. So I'll move acceptance of line item transfer 1516-17 in the amount of $2,500.
Second.
Any discussion on this? I guess this comes from Mariella LaRocca, so I'm assuming you're okay. All right, all those in favor? Aye. And now we come to the fun ones, okay. Line item transfer 151618 is for $24,800, and it's from Human Services Vehicles. I guess there was a vehicle they got a grant for.
Correct. Right.
This is basically to clean up the contaminated soil, which we've been hearing a lot about in the maintenance area at the country club. So I'll move acceptance of line item transfer 1516-18. We have a series of
Actually,
these.
Yeah, Matt,
So-
I actually asked Tony if he would go through all of these
Right.
so we understand.
I'd be happy
what
to
the
go through each
package
one and
is.
what
Yeah.
they each mean.
And then go back and
Okay,
vote on
go
them.
ahead.
Is that okay?
And the total amount that we're talking about here.
So there are essentially three requests. The third one is split
Okay.
between a transfer and then contingency funding. So that's why there are four of them, but there are actually three requests. So the requests are as follows. I'm going to go in sort of an order of 1516-19. Let's start with that one first. That's for $15,000. That's for additional testing of the groundwater in the existing monitoring wells at the country club. For those of you who were at the meeting that we had over at the senior center, there was a mention that we tested all these groundwater monitoring wells originally when we put them in 2011,
Yeah.
and so we had to retest them just recently, and it's to show that there was no movement or any change in the groundwater in terms of if there was any contamination in the groundwater.
And this is for 1 year testing?
It's for testing 9 wells. So they went to 9 wells, pull the testing, they got sent into a lab, they got to get, there's a series of work that has to be done to test the water on these 9 monitoring wells.
And the results are in, right?
Results are in.
And there was nothing.
Now on this particular one, the vendor, we did not commit to this, so we didn't actually commit to doing this. The vendor took a risk that we would fund it. But we didn't actually do a contract or purchase order or anything. But the idea was to get those results as soon as we could to alleviate any concerns that may exist as to whether or not there was any.
So we don't need to
contamination.
continue to do this. This is really.
It's one of the things I was going to bring up is that I think when we didn't have to do it. We didn't have to do this at all.
I
didn't have to,
understand.
no.
Based
I
on the
understand.
meeting I attended, I mean, there was no, even the maintenance barn, they said if you took a shovel full of dirt out, that would have satisfied the state. You started. But and this was targeted to be a lot more money than this.
So so I'll just get into that, yeah. So the next one is 1516-18. And this is to remove the contaminated soil in the back of the maintenance area, which is just a portion that's a significant environmental hazard.
Which is now fenced off, marked.
Right. That's to
hazardous,
remove that part.
And it's way off the beaten path, so
That's to remove that portion.
yeah.
And that's the price you see here, $24,800. The estimate of $180,000 is to remove all the chloridine soil in that area. This is just the significant environmental hazard part, which is the portion that's cordoned off. There's actually other areas that have chloridine in them, but it's not; those concentrations aren't high enough to warrant it as a significant environmental
Yes.
hazard.
And if any of you listened to the meeting or attended the meeting, chlordane tends to cling to the grasses or whatever.
It's a
It doesn't-
pesticide, that's
right,
why, yeah.
It doesn't travel. It doesn't migrate is the word.
Right.
And so there's no threat, despite all we heard about, there's no threat to the homeowners. It doesn't go anywhere, and there's no sign of it in anybody's well. There's one well, I guess, and it's the one right adjacent. It used to be the greenskeeper's house that a private party bought when we bought the country
Right,
club.
that's right.
And but he had his well he had his well
Okay.
he had his well done, whatever you
That
call
was retested, and there was
Yeah.
still some evidence of chlorine.
it. They were thinking it was coming from the swimming pool, but they put a test well or whatever between the swimming pool and this house, and there's nothing.
Yeah.
So it's something that the homeowner did. He had his well chlorinated. or
Right. Since then, they've retested it, and it still has
Right.
the same thing. So it's
Right.
there's some
But it's not because of the country club.
right.
So. But again, from what I heard at that meeting, even this, removing this soil, we're doing it, but it poses no threat to anybody in that area. But we're doing it anyway, so.
Yeah, but what it does do is we begin the remediation, we get it
Right.
done.
Yeah.
Because we are
Right.
responsible
Yeah.
for
Right.
it, so.
Right.
And this is the
You know, if we-
most
if we-
serious part.
Yeah, and if we could take away with it little bits at a time, we're better off doing, let's get it done.
Yeah.
So
And,
that's the second one. Now the last one, which is a combination of 21 and 20, is if you remember at the meeting, Matt, there were some concerns raised about the groundwater and the area around the halfway house.
Near Johnson Road.
Right. So currently, I think there's 1 or 2 wells there, and this here will install additional monitoring wells at the halfway house, similar to how it was done at the maintenance area, where you identify the area. They call it the plume, I think is the word, of the extent of where the chloridine is. This will help to determine the extent of the, they call them PAS. It's essentially a petroleum type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this will install additional wells in certain strategic locations to identify the extent of that issue. But that's not a hazard. It's just a contamination, but it's not a significant environmental hazard.
And then how often do we have to test and pay for that?
So this is to test it the one time. I'm not aware of how often you have to do that. That I don't know.
Or and how often would we be requested
That yeah.
to keep validating
Right.
that?
Again, I don't know. So those are basically the 3 requests.
But again, I think once we do this, other than I guess maybe as Sandy's talking about, just making sure there's nothing and nothing's going to show up. If you heard them talk, they don't. This stuff doesn't travel. It's not like the gasoline in back of town hall that migrates like crazy. This stuff is not going to. And hey, I'd be the first guy. If it's affecting any homeowner in Woodbridge, I'd be the first guy to say let's do it. But I didn't hear that night. I mean, I don't even know. I don't think we even had to do this, but we did it. We're going to do it, and hopefully, this is going to make people happy that we did something that's. And again, it was misinformation and mispresented, and we did everything wrong. But I think we're good with this.
I'm encouraged that all of this is, or most of it is line item transfers. But could you explain again about the source of funds from
Certainly.
Human Services?
The Human Services had put in the budget for a bus placement.
Okay.
At the same time, they had received a grant for that.
Okay,
The
so they will
timing-
not need this
Correct. So they don't
Right.
need these funds
Okay.
because they had received a
money.
grant.
Got it, okay.
And so I
Alright.
felt it was appropriate.
It's called Tony's Magic.
Okay, should we
Okay.
go through these? All right, I'll move acceptance of line item transfer 1516-18 in the amount of $24,800.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'll move acceptance of line item transfer 1516-19 in the amount of $15,000.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let me stay on top of these. I'll move acceptance of line item transfer 1516-20 in the amount of $12,336.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Yes, Susan?
No,
Oh, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
that was an aye.
And finally, request for funding 1516-21 in the amount of $8,964.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So Tony, this leaves us with
370.
a contingency balance of how much?
370.
374,000, which some of it we need for,
You need, so there's following items are probably, there may be some required for the fire department maintenance of their vehicle line, depending on how their budget winds up at the end of the year. That was one that we had mentioned. Another is for air packs,
Right.
which was
Right.
reduced
Right.
in the budget.
so we'll be seeing these coming up.
Those will come in June.
Right.
And then the rest is for any other labor or other matters that may exist that we have.
We'll just make sure we got these all.
So we should be, the total is,
Do you think it'll be spent?
yes.
Okay.
But I think with what we did here tonight, after the Board of Selectmen also voted in favor of it, I think we've satisfied the major concern of the country club for, I don't know that we have to do anything. And again, it's another item that's gonna come up for discussion about the country club, so. Okay, let me just get squared away here. All right, we have some minutes to approve. First of all, we have the Board of Finance meeting on April 25th, 2016. This was the one, this was the budget hearing. I'll move acceptance of the minutes of April 25th, 2016 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion, adjustments, corrections, etc.? No? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next was our regular, no, this was the meeting the other night, May 16th, and it was to set the mill rate. I'll move acceptance of the minutes of the May 16th, 2016 Board of Finance meeting.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Preliminary suspense list. This is something these are items that have to go into a suspense list by statute, but we don't write them off. She continues to attempt to correct. I'm assuming
This is
some of these.
preliminary. Vote on the
Yeah,
actual
some of
suspense
these
list
are, right, some of
next
these
month.
are real estate, so I'm assuming there's liens and whatever.
Correct. Yeah, you could put real
But I
estate in
noticed-
suspense, it's just, she
I
still tries
noticed
to collect
The
them.
same name again.
Yeah.
Yes,
Again,
right.
again,
Yeah.
geez.
Yep.
So I'm assuming we'll correct some of
And
these.
she'll have the final list in June.
Right, do we have to
No.
approve this?
No.
We don't?
No.
Okay.
That's preliminary. All right, appointment of auditors, Tony?
McGladrey and Pullen is
Okay.
our second year, of our bid.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we appoint it's not McLeod.
It's now it's
R.
RSM.
RSM as our auditors for the second year of a 3-year contract?
Second?
It's 4, I think,
4-year contract?
Yeah.
Okay.
but second year, yeah.
Okay, I have a second?
I second it.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Ellen has already given her report. Liaison reports. I went to the Amity meeting, nothing major to report. They're moving along, and I'm assuming, again, it's just like every other, as we get closer to the end of the year, we'll get more information as to whether there's a surplus, so. But there's nothing major going on over there that I can think of. We approved some contracts for snow plowing and whatever, but nothing earth-shattering. So, I don't know if you heard, but Terry Loomis was appointed to replace Jack Levine,
Oh,
which is good. Terry is very, very competent,
great.
and I recommended that they keep it in-house. She's excellent. And so we have a good
Wonderful.
finance
Good transition.
director. Yeah. She's been there quite a while, so, and she's very good. Paul, you have anything?
No, I think we've covered it all.
Okay.
Expenditures on equipment and so on. Engine 3's pump needed to be replaced, so the maintenance, as Tony said, is going to be pretty high. So,
Okay, Karen?
No, EMS had their meeting the day of the town, annual town meeting, so, and Human Services, I guess, all is good. Went to the volunteer tea, it was good. They keep their budget in line and continue to work on programming, but all's well with Human Services.
Okay. Andrew?
Postpone, the meeting is tonight.
Oh, that's right.
And I'm here.
Okay. David, you're good?
Yeah.
Sandy, I know you didn't have a meeting either? or-
For the
Oh,
finance,
library
but the
did.
library did meet, and so just a couple of things. So the Friends of the Library has had a successful fundraiser, and I think they really have resurfaced as a very active organization. And they have another book sale the first weekend in June, the 3rd through the 5th. So I encourage you to kind of drop off books for sale and also look for things that you want. There are continued problems with book delivery. This is the statewide system of interlibrary loans. And the directors from the libraries were going to go meet with the state library board of directors to try to influence them in terms of doing something about this problem. I think many people are fed up with this. And it doesn't just affect our library, it's all the libraries we borrow books from in addition to ones that we, loan our books to. The last thing is that there will be a staff development day for the librarians and the staff on June 15th, which is the Amity graduation day. And they felt that would be a good time to do that because the usage of the library is probably going to be down. So there will be an announcement of the library being closed on that day.
Okay.
That's it.
Anything else? Yes, sir.
I just want to clear the air on something. I guess it was the public official that
Oh. I was
had a
wondering what it
discussion with
was.
David in the parking lot.
I was wondering.
And
What, you saw him putting him on the car?
Yes, as a matter of
Okay.
fact, I asked them to remove them. And these flyers had no name on them, so
Yeah.
that they were not, no name was on the flyers. And I asked him that he should not be putting these on, doesn't have permission, this is private property. And basically he told me that he has the right to do what he wants to do.
Oh, really? He didn't say
So
that.
I basically went and got Father Gene, and Father Gene had a conversation with him, and he left. So, I mean, that was basically it.
I know Father Gene was not happy.
It is private property. It's not happy because Father Gene says it's not political here.
Right.
So it was, and the concept that he didn't know was private property, I find. But, so I just want to set the record straight on that. But I was the so-called public official.
Oh, you're the public official.
I'm the
I was
public
wondering.
official
I was
that
wondering
talked to
what
him
it was.
about it.
I just, as you all know, I write a lot of letters. And when you write a letter, you put your name on it.
Yep.
Or it doesn't get published.
That's correct.
These people who want to put, and we had this problem when we had the country club, when we had the vote on the condos, that first vote, and everybody's mailbox got stuffed,
Yep.
and there's no name on these things. You know, I
Well,
mean, you feel that strongly about it. I didn't find his letter was an opinion. Put your name on it. What's the big deal?
Well, I mean, they did it at the 9:30 mass, and
Yeah.
when of course we had the breakfast after 9:30,
Right.
and people came in, and people were annoyed.
Yeah,
They're disturbed about the fact that these things were being put over their automobiles.
right.
So at the 11:30 mass, we went out again, and the same guy was there putting them on the windshield.
Oh, really?
So it's not that we're opposed to having discourse.
Oh.
What we're opposed to is that type of discourse.
Yeah.
And when you want to, you're willing to publish something, but you're not willing to put your name to it.
Right.
Okay? So it's Mr. Anonymous. So anyway, I just thought he went on the record.
Okay,
I
I
thought
had
that
no
was the
idea.
same
I had no idea who he was talking about, but
Now you know.
yeah.
Well, his description would have never led us to believe it.
No,
Something like
not
that.
Andy.
Police officer.
And I'm the one who gives it also.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Have a wonderful Memorial Day, everybody. And hopefully it'll be published. We should, if we want to come to the swearing in for Frank Capiola next Thursday.
Yeah. Do that. And, feel free to take a Shwedel home.